I was standing by the riverside in the northern wilderness. No stars or moon to light my way, just a single black darkness. I could not see my hands. I could not see my feet as I blindly searched for some dry leaves, maybe a few good twigs. And then I fumbled in my pocket and carefully struck the match. And it burned as bright as any sun as the dark was driven back. I want to be a spark. I want to be a flicker. I want to be a glimmer of what's burning in God's heart. Now, the ranger had us all sit down in the bottom of Kentucky's Mammoth Cave, and he explained how lost we'd be if the light was taken away, and I knew he was going to do it. Turn out the light like that? But I was not prepared at all when the darkness turned to black. Then I heard the scratch on paper, and I watched that first spark fly, and I watched as hope and comfort burned in the matchlight of their eyes. I want to be a spark. I want to be a flicker. I want to be a glimmer of what's burning in God's heart. I want to be the sparkle in my Father's eye when someone finds their way. I want to be a flicker. I want to be a glimmer. I want to be a spark. You asked me about that night. It was different. When we went in the room, the lamb smelled wonderful, but I'm going to tell you right now, the lamb was tough. And the bread was tougher. Jesus had to tear it so that we could eat it. And it took a bit to chew, if you know what I'm trying to say. And the wine was bittersweet. Jesus was in a strange mood. He seemed troubled. He knew everything. He knew all that was about to transpire, and we were completely in the dark. We ate. He talked about his body and his blood. I've always had trouble with metaphors. I've always had trouble with similes. But I got that. And when I chewed, every morsel between my teeth crunched. But the lamb was tough. We're always picking at each other. We always kind of want to know who's going to be the leader, and we were kind of going that direction. When Jesus stood up and walked to the corner where the pitcher and the towel and the bowl were, and he began to disrobe, I giggled. I didn't know what else to do. What would you do? He was taking off his clothes. And then he picked up the pitcher and the towel and the bowl, and he started toward Peter. Peter was climbing back on that couch. His eyes were this big around. You are not washing my feet. Jesus said, if I don't wash your feet, you have no part with me. And Peter says, well, wash everything. Wash my head, wash my feet, wash everything, my hands too. It was always John that was always making notes. John wrote down everything. John always wrote down everything. He was the one that leaned on his bosom. He liked to call himself the one that Jesus loved. I remember the exchange between Peter and Jesus, feed my sheep, and that whole little conversation, and how that Peter had made this declaration, I'll die for you, I'll die for you. And Jesus says, really? You'll die for me? I promise you, before this night's over, you will deny me 3 times. I can't tell you exactly what shade of white his face was, but it was as ashen as anything I have ever seen. And Jesus' very next words were, let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house, there are many mansions. If it weren't so, I'd tell you. And I'm going to prepare a place for you, that where I am, you may be also. I'm going to my Father. You can't come right now. The place I'm going, you don't know. Teach us, Lord, show us the way. You'll have your turn. We got up and we left singing a hymn. We went out into the garden. We go there all the time to pray. I have a favorite rock. During the day, the sun is warm on this rock, and it's a big flat rock, so I can stretch out. There's another rock I can put my back against, and I can have a prayerful nap. Jesus went further ahead and knelt down. He told us to watch and pray. Watch and pray. And I did. Over by the olive tree, I heard him say, oh, my Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as thou wilt. And then I was asleep. The next thing I know, I heard him saying, what, you can't pray with me an hour? Wake up! What's wrong with you guys? I asked you to pray for me. Pray with me. I was so full of lamb and bread and wine, and I was warmed by my rock, and I felt bad. And I tried to pray, but mostly I tried to sleep. He came again and said, please wake up. And this time he was wet with sweat. And in the dark, it smelled of blood. And I saw him go back to the olive tree. I looked after him. He looked so lonely. And he knelt. Oh, my Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as you will. And then he was up on his feet, and down through the orchard, I could see the lights. They were coming with staves and torches. Jesus stood up to meet them, walked ahead of us, separated us from them. And he says, who are you looking for? And they said, Jesus of Nazareth. And he said, I am he. They fell down. Scrambled to their feet. And he says, who are you looking for? And they said, we're looking for Jesus. And he said, I am he. Peter grabbed the sword, jumped up, raced over, and sliced off the ear. He looked like a girl swinging that thing. Jesus instantly stopped him and healed the man's ear. and they took him away. And I have to say that I ran away. I ran away. I ran away. I ran, and through the dark I ran as fast as I could down the hill and away as far as I could run away. But I'm not running now. You asked me about that night. The lamb was tough, and the wine was bittersweet, and the bread was tougher still. And one of these days, let me tell you a story.